minutes. I'll just
Yeah.
introduce you. And then, so participants, we have with us Dr. Suman Kumar Das. So he is associated with Mirai Foods in Switzerland. So leveraging almost a decade of progressive experience in innovative project formulation and execution in collaborative and independent environments. He is the project lead and he has achieved a lot, and he is the co-founder and CSO at Mirai Foods. At Mirai Foods, they are striving to produce cultivated, clean and pure meat in order to reduce greenhouse gas emission and land and water usage, as well as foodborne pathologies. And their aim is to offer a better, healthier product to consumers. So Mirai Foods offers also entrepreneurial and innovative culture that encourages leading scientists and passionate team members as they push the boundaries of science to create the food of future. So his talk would be today on cultivated meat, the future of food. So with this brief introduction, I would now request Dr. Das to start with his talk. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the nice introduction, Dr. Monty, and I'm really excited to be on this stage. Thank you for the opportunity to tell, or I guess educate more about the cultivated meat. It's not something new, but it's an upcoming field. First of all, before starting, can you see my full screen or the PowerPoint version?
Sorry, yeah, it's in PowerPoint mode. Yeah, it's good to, you're good to go.
Okay, good. So yeah, so originally I'm from India, did my PhD here outside of India, and through my research, I developed various tissue engineering technologies, and then later, like first I was working on pharma, but then techniques gives much more value when it's converted to food. Why is that? I will come to. I co-founded Mirai Foods, along means future and foods. So it's the food for the future. It's not anymore future of food for the future because it's a reality right now. So, but that time it was more of future. It is a necessity for now, and but first let's go to what is, sorry. Yeah, what is cultivated meat? Cultivated meat is a meat produced by in vitro cell culture of animal cells instead of slaughtered animals. So it means that we take some cells out of the animal and we proliferate them, or we grow them in large numbers outside of the animal, and we make the meat out of it. This can be for anything. It can be for fish, it can be for chicken, beef, pork. There are various companies targeting different animal species. Some also make exotic meats like zebra, kangaroo, etc. Or that the technology is so powerful that you can also mix and match, basically to get the benefit of different types of meat which are good in different properties. Cultivated meat is known by several names over the past years, but right now the industry is more focused on cultivated meat. They almost agreed to this name. However, there are other names which are which is quite common in the articles, newspapers, etc. But why do we need a new kind of meat in the first place? What is wrong with our own very old meat, fish or chicken? Why do we need a new technology to feed us. Um, the need is it's not very recent, but it is realized very recently. Why is that? Because of the increasing awareness of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we are all aware that we should reduce the greenhouse gas emissions to help uh, um, achieving a greener planet, to help the planet slow down to the destructive path. Um, and we always focus on our transportation. But interestingly, the transportation only contributes to 13% of the greenhouse gas emissions, from 18 to 50%. And the range is so big because the numbers are quite controversial. But still, even if you take 18%, comes just from the animal agriculture, which is really very surprising, and no one really focus on that. Then the livestock cover 45% of the Earth's total land, which is quite a big portion, considering that we do not have so much of arable land on our Earth. And that causes deforestation because we need to cut the trees to clear out the grounds for animal agriculture. And animal agriculture is seen to be directly responsible for 91% of the destruction of Amazon forest. That leads to an species extinction, and I'm sure you are all aware of that. It doesn't stop there. Interestingly, more than 55% of the water consumption is for animal agriculture in US. One hamburger which a person eats requires 3,000 liters of water. You can shower for 2 months with that water. And we all know how important it is to save the water. And when saving the water, we always focus on showering less, or in a more efficient way. But here in the animal agriculture is the major intake for water resources. Then it's not a very fancy topic, but still the animals or the animal agriculture, it produces a lot of waste. Um, on one hand, you can argue that it's a good manure for the field, but it has to be contained. A manure is not good when it's in excess, or nothing is good when it's in excess. And that is what is happening with the animal agriculture. The waste from animal farm with a 2,500 dairy cows is equivalent to more than 400,000 people of a city. So much of waste, it needs a proper disposal, and that is becoming more and more of a problem. In addition, we know that animal slaughtering is not very ethical. Even more concerning is how the animals are kept. Um, I'm from Switzerland, and I have this fantasy, or I had that fantasy before, that the cow is, grazing on a greener pastures on a Swiss Alps. But the meat which we are getting is not from that. The meat we are getting is from some crowded animal farm, and that is not so nice to imagine. And of course, to feed us, animals are slaughtered every minute. For example, more than 500 cows are slaughtered every minute. More than 110,000 chickens are slaughtered every minute to feed us, and so on and so forth. So you see the problem with the meat. Yeah. Well, one of the most important things is the antibiotic resistance. We are all aware of antibiotic resistant microbes and the surge of it in the recent past. And we all focus on use of antibiotics in humans, on humans. And that is to some extent, it's a concern, but more concerning is the use of antibiotics in the animals. Why is it needed? Because the animals are kept in a very crowded space. That means that they are very prone of disease, and they are very susceptible to disease, and the disease can really spread very rapidly amongst them. To avoid that, they are fed with antibiotics, a lot of them. Um, some statistics, it's like 70, more than 70% of the antibiotics produced in the world is used on animal farms, like farm animals. And this is going to increase. The recent projections by 2030, 82% the antibiotics produced will be used on animal farms, farm animals. And it is estimated that more than 60% of the human diseases, they originate in animals. So considering all this gives a not a very good image of animal farming and the meat we eat. And that includes everything. It's not about chicken, it's not about fish, it's not about beef. It's same for all of the meats we are eating. So one might argue that there is a recent trend of becoming vegetarian or vegan, and that will save the world because the meat consumption will go down, and of course, um, the planet becomes healthy again. However, we do not. I do not know how many of you recently saw the stats, but it's not a lot of people who are turning vegetarian or vegan. It's just 1% of the whole population, not even 1% actually. And there is a forecast that the meat consumption is going up, and it will continue going up um, with with um, with new new countries becoming self-sufficient to grow and consume meat. So there is another alternative available today is the plant-based meat, and that also came a long way since tofu came to our diet, and it's really a very good progress, and the quality of the meat, it's really great. However, we saw that the sales of the plant-based meat is falling very rapidly over the past year. As you can see, the Beyond Burger, Beyond Meat, it's one of the forefront of plant-based meat, and their sales are struggling. Why is that? Because everyone was excited when it came. However, they soon realized that it's good for taste, but it's not so great to include it in their daily diet. So they taste it, they eat it occasionally, maybe, but then they go back to the meat because it is providing a very limited sensory experience. Um, it has a low acceptability because of the emotional or the socio-cultural meat attachment. And of course, the meat protein has a very different um, um, nutritional profile, which you cannot get from the plant-based mimetics. So the solutions till date, it's not really optimal, and we need another alternative to really help us in fixing our food system. And there comes the cultivated meat. As I mentioned before, the cultivated meat is not a plant-based meat. Many people confuse it with that, but it's basically it's not a vegetarian, it's not vegan, it's real meat with some plant ingredients, of course. And there's a recent report published where it shows that the meat demand, as we saw before, will increase. But thankfully, the actual conventional meat will decrease the consumption of it. And that is a good sign. Although the decrease is not so much, it's just minus 3% projected, but I hope that will decrease much faster. But the good thing is that the projections show that the cultivated meat, or here cultured meat, it is increasing at a tremendous pace. And there are various reasons for that, and we can go towards it. And um, I can tell you that there are many companies working on cultivated meat right now to bring this to reality. But can cultivated meat solve the problems of the traditional meat production, like the environment, the effect on the environments, etc.? Um, Not all, but it can decrease quite a lot those effects. Here you can see on the left hand graph that the land use and the energy used for cultivated meat is much smaller in comparison to beef production. In addition, it can reduce up to 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, there are no antibiotics used in the production of cultivated meat, so it can take care of the rise of antibiotic resistant bacteria. It's more ethical because there are no animals harmed on this. We do not need to slaughter the animals. We just need to take a small biopsy once every 3 months, or even a year, or maybe in few years. It gives us more food security because during the past Corona times, we saw that the food security is a major issue. Even with the ongoing war, the food security is becoming more and more important. And cultivated meat can give a very powerful food security to countries like Singapore or Middle East. So how is it made? So here you can see on the left hand corner, top corner is the first cultivated meat ever produced in 2013. And on the right hand side, you can see the process in a nutshell. So in the first step, we take a small tissue biopsy from the animal of your choice. It can be chicken, pork, beef, fish. It doesn't matter. Then those animals, they have stem cells in them, and the stem cells are what we need. They have the tremendous potential of growing infinitely, and not infinitely, but for a very long time, and becoming muscle and fat when we need them to be. So the cells are isolated, those stem cells, they are grown in large bioreactors, which is similar to the fermentation, which you might be familiar with. Once they are grown in a large numbers, they are taken out of the bioreactors, and they are introduced in a different kind of bioreactor where they are converted into muscle or fat. Once the muscle and fat is made, they are then combined to form any kind of product. So, for example, here um, I'm posting three pictures, which is quite recent from three different companies. They are not ours, where you can see a steak, a morsel, and a beef patty burger, burger patty. And of course, there are so many different kinds of product types you can imagine to make with this technology because it gives you that kind of power. How long does it take to make a cultivated meat? that's another advantage of cultivated meat because our population is growing and we need to um, feed our population with nutritious meat and nutritious fish, chicken, um, and we cannot wait for so long for the animal's life cycle to happen. And that is the advantage of cultivated meat, that it takes between 5 to 7 weeks compared to 112 weeks in a traditional way. And you can get more than 10,000 tons of meat from 1 gram of biopsy. That's so powerful. And it doesn't mean that you need to grow 10,000 tons of meat. To grow 10,000 tons of meat, it will take forever. It can be achieved within this 5 to 7 weeks because it can be scaled out. It just needs some time to scale up for the whole industry, but that can be a future. The next question many of us ask is cultivated meat safe? Yes, it is. So Singapore in 2020, they approved they are the first country to approve lab-grown meat, chicken meat, to be sold in a restaurant or shop. And that did not come very lightly. I do not know how many of you know that food is also very tightly regulated, similar to our medicines, vaccines, etc. So there are authorities in every country who go very deep in the tech and request different kinds of analysis from the companies producing them. And they only release or approve the product to be sold in the market after reviewing every potential safety hazard associated with it. So yes, Singapore approved the first lab-grown chicken meat in 2020. Very recently, just 2 weeks ago, US also, US like FDA, body of USA, they also said that lab-grown meat is safe to eat. They approved another chicken, lab-grown chicken from another company to be sold in US. So yes, it's quite safe, and I'm very sure that in the coming months or years, that there will be more and more of these kind of approvals. More than that, is the trust from different people. I ate cultivated meat many times, and so did my colleagues. And we all we all are quite fine till now, thankfully. But more importantly, the politicians, they are also turning towards cultivated meat. They understand the potential of it, and they are not scared to taste it, to eat it. So here in the picture, you can see the president of Israel. He is the first uh, president in the world to eat cultivated chicken. Recently, US president also said that he is willing to eat or taste cultivated meat. So you see that there are more and more people recognizing it is quite safe. Safety is one thing, but is it healthy for us? Again, cultivated meat is a technology. It gives us immense potential to really formulate what is healthy, what it means healthy. Um, this is something we are very serious at Mirai Foods, and we are working towards developing a meat which is rich in protein, rich in good fats like omega and polyunsaturated fatty acids, rich in vitamins, rich in prebiotic fibers, which really strengthen our gut microbiota, and low in saturated fat, which is mostly associated with many of the traditional meats. So there are different product profiles portfolios we are working on, which can target different sections or subset of consumers, and thus help the yeah different products targeted towards different consumers willing to achieve different targets. What about consumer acceptance? That's a question which we get almost every day by journalists, by investors, by industry people, and to be honest, it's changing. Um, it's really changing, and we saw a similar trend when people were surveyed for COVID vaccines. It changed from very negative to very positive, and the same thing is happening here. And it's very interesting the trends because there are different sections of people who are more or less willing. But overall, if we compare the numbers, as you can see that in US and UK, there are more than 40% of the gender population. They want to really try it and would consider. Uh, and for India, the numbers are even better. I mean, for India, like 48, more than 48% people, they said they will very likely consume or purchase lab-grown meat. And more than 70% said that they would definitely try it at some point. It's just that 10% said they will never try it. But of course, it also depends on the level of education, the how much we know about cultivated meat, etc. So who is producing cultivated meat? In 2016, there were just 4 companies, but in 2021, there are more than 50 companies existing, and that's really great because we need a change to happen, and that change cannot happen by just one company making that food. It has to be a collaborative effect. So Mirai Foods do not consider it as a competition. It's a healthy competition, of course, but it has to be a collaborative work to change the food system where we can taste cultivated meat. So till now, there is just one restaurant in the world where you can get cultivated meat. It's in Singapore. It's called 1880. The company Eat Just, or right now they changed it to Good Meat. They introduced cultivated meat in Singapore in this restaurant where you can get chicken bites basically. Yeah, but soon we are hoping that there will be more restaurants in Singapore or even in US. There will be more restaurants opening up to serve cultivated meat. Why can't we buy cultivated meat in supermarkets? So there are different aspects of it, that it's too expensive right now. It needs to be scaled up very fast to a larger scale, because we know that we need tons of meats to be produced to feed the world. And as I said, there is a very strict regulatory approval process which needs time. And the regulators, they are very strict on the safety and the nutrition of cultivated meat, and that is taking a lot of time. Of course, the consumer acceptance play a very important role, because we need to educate people, not just educate, but to increase the awareness of the people, to show that it's very safe, it's nutritious, and you can consume it just like your traditional meat or fish. Sorry. I find it very interesting. I'm sorry that the slide is crowded, but I won't go in detail. I found it very interesting that even though we are hearing the term very recently, the cultivated meat, but it's not a new concept. You won't believe that in 1930s, Winston Churchill asked his secretary to write a book, how the world will look like in the future. And he mentioned cultivated meat in that book in 1930s. And he said that if I want to eat a chicken breast or chicken wing, why should I grow a whole chicken? It's so waste of the energy. In 1991, the first patent on cultivated meat came, and of course, it was um, very well recognized by NASA that it can actually feed astronauts because you do not need a whole farm to grow the meat. You can get the same nutrition, you can get the same properties by just growing the meat in the bioreactor, and the bioreactor can be installed anywhere in the universe. Uh, so the NASA were the forefront in funding the projects, and they were the first one to develop or to really push for cultivated meat. Then, of course, there are many research institutes who took up the challenge, and first journal article came in 2005. Since then, the first cultivated meat burger in reality came or was unveiled on 2013 by Mark Post in London. Um, the first companies were formed in 2015, and right now there are more than 40 companies working on cultivated meat. So it's a new concept for many of us, but the concepts are very old, and that's gives us more confidence on the technology. Is cultivated meat relevant for India? Um, yes, it is, and it is relevant for every country. And there are many articles published on it, and it says that because the consumers in India are so aware, they are so informed, they think scientifically, and it's very good that they can have a smooth transition to cultivated meat. And the survey which I showed you a few minutes ago also showed the same thing. It can give India food security, the climate improvements, and of course better nutrition. And it can really transform India's food industry. So if it is so powerful and that is recognized by the Good Food Institute organization, GFI, which is also present in India, and that institute collaborated with many of the CSR and the national institutes throughout India to work on cultivated meat at different levels, to produce cells, to produce technology, to scale up, to reduce the cost, to work on new species, etc. So there are two startups also who started in India. Clear Meat, who is working on cultivated chicken. If you do not know about them, please Google. You will get to their website. It's amazing. And Maya Works, who is a startup uh, in IIT Mumbai, and they are working on scaffolds which can help companies like us producing cultivated meat. So there is a transformation happening even in India, and there are many institutes and companies they are coming up more and more to work on this area. At Mirai Foods, we are working on natural processes to grow the cells, to grow meat which is without any genetic manipulation or chemical manipulation. We are using fresh cells from heritage breeds. We don't use antibiotics, and we promise to offer premium quality meat, which is really great in nutrition, as I mentioned a few slides ago. And it gives all the functionalities of the meat, because that is what we think is very important for the consumers, because if the consumers like the meat or the product, they can eat it and they can take it to their daily nutrition, daily diet, and that is when the change can come. With that, I will end my talk. I hope I'm in time and happy to answer the questions.
Thank you, Suman. Thank you so much for this interesting talk. So now the floor is open